Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Something Good, we hope. This is the Bookcloaks stream about the book and not the show. We'll try not to talk about the show at all. We've got an awesome section of the books coming up. So it's chapter 36 to 41. Today, a lot of the action happens in Camelin or just about to arrive in Camelin. And we've got two guests this time around. So let me bring on the first one. Everybody who's on our Discord knows him. Spaced Oyster Bud, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, despite being still maybe hungover from Thursday. I don't know. How is that experience for? We don't
Yeah.
want to talk about it, but it's in the back of our minds. I hope you're glad to be here for a bit of a palate cleanser.
Oh yeah, I'm great to be here and to talk about the books. With the show, it just put me to sleep, to be honest.
You didn't miss anything if you fell asleep, but now, you won a trivia contest that I was probably running one morning in the Discord. I had some odd question or esoteric question. Was glad like you were one of the first to respond. You got it right. It might have been a question about horses or something like that.
It
But
was.
then,
Oh,
oh, go ahead.
sorry. It was a possibly weird line from a Egwene early on, where she
Oh,
was.
oh
Um,
yeah. I think we covered this in our first book club stream because I thought this might have been an editing error. But yeah, you hunted down exactly what I was looking for. Now I remember.
yeah.
But since you won one of the earliest ones, and why I'm asking you about this is I offered you any section of this book that you wanted to come on and guest for, and you specifically asked for a chapter with a certain giant character.
Yeah. When I first started reading the series, the moment I got to Loyal's introduction, it was like, he basically became the whole reason I kept reading the series, more or less. Well, like like all the story stuff was good, but he definitely became my favorite character from introduction to end.
And what was it about him? Was it just this is something new or different, or was he a friendly giant, or everybody's got their own different favorite characters, but I'm always intrigued to like kind of hear what it is about why people pick the ones that they do.
I think with Loyal, it was basically like meeting him was the first good thing to happen to Rand, and uh for quite a few chapters or however long that took in the story. I'm not very good at figuring out the time. So so Rand meeting him was like the first good thing to happen in a while, and he immediately just tells Loyal everything that's been happening rather than keeping anything out like he did with Gil or anyone else they talked to. And then the way he not only took it in stride but was able to immediately figure out, oh, you're a Taviran off of all that. And then from there it was just a combination of all that, the novelty, and the fact that he's usually the uh adds a bit of levity to the situations he's in because everyone sees him and freaks out.
I liked about him that he was 90 and still like a teenager and
Yeah.
kind of had that teenage mentality where it's just like I think Rand even mentions if I live to be old as Sen Buey, I'll be happy. And then it clicks in his head. Wait a second, Sen Buey's not even as old as Loyal is. So, anyways, let me bring on our second guest. But thanks for that, Spaced. Our second guest, I if you guys don't know him, this is Lewis Perrin Kinslayer, who is responsible for all of the most offensive memes, other than a certain horse with a giant penis that I can claim credit for. But all the Narg posts, this was this genius. So LPK, good to see you, friend. Um, it looks like all technical issues have been solved on your side. You got all the bandwidth going, but finally glad to have you on a stream and
Well,
glad it's
thank you
about
so
the
very much.
books.
Absolutely, yeah. The most wonderful books. So, uh,
Now you also requested, so you reached out to me kind of offline, and you really wanted to be part of this. I have to admit, I kind of already booked everything up, but I thought, you know what, for the NARC posting, dude, we can make an exception. So I asked kind of what chapters you would like to cover, and you also, I think, picked the Loyal chapter.
Loyal and the Taveran falling from sky into the court of Morghese in Camelin, a high seat of House Drakand. Probably my favorite chapter in all of the books.
Really?
More or less. It's just so very fascinating.
Is it about all the characters that you meet? Because I mean, a lot of them, they don't really serve a purpose in this book itself.
No,
they serve a major purpose in the story going forward.
And it all ties back, to the transformative nature of the Taveran, that becomes very present in that garden as he falls out of nowhere. Rand al'Thor meets these characters and transforms them from medieval romance into Robert Jordan's concept of his new cast that he's going to bring forward in the next 11 books that he wrote, and toward the conclusion of the fantasy series itself. It's just really just a fascinating take on storytelling, which I think was very deliberate on Robert Jordan's part. I think he was an author just delighted in telling the story, and it's just what happens there in that garden stays with you. People just your first impression becomes so askew from what happens to all of those people, especially Elaine.
I still love her, but that's all because of that first chapter, I think. So, and the odd thing is, I really like Gawain too.
Yes.
From the he was a very nice gentleman.
His first impression, he's a sweetheart.
But why does Elaine's first impression stick so hard with me, but Gawain's has basically just gone out the door? I don't know. But let's debate that when we come to that chapter. Let me bring on our esteemed co-panelists. We got Kenny, we got Steve, got the original Sneeds, Memes, and Dreams, and we got the Walking Picks Dictionary of Wheel of Time himself. Kenny, how are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Excellent. Steve?
You're muted, Steve.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I muted myself, but...
All right. We got folks in the chat here, although I think it might mostly be us. No, that's not true. Lady Balefire, hope she's back, because those chats look like they came a while ago. Ozzy Moto is here. Ozzy joined us for the last Play for Your Supper stream that we did. Good to see you, my friend. Gadfly's been on as well. Howdy, sir. There's this guy. Oh, yeah, that's you, Kenny. Damn it. This is not me. This is, I think, Alex saying LPK, and he did it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Space Oyster said konnichiwa for some reason. Trip, obligatory hello, Trip. Sven, good to see you, friend. And I think that's everyone. So we don't have a whole lot who have joined in just yet. Really, I thought everyone would be dying for a book stream simply because the show is what it has been doing. But maybe everyone's kind of had a little bit too much Wheel of Time in the last week. But that's not stopping us. We're going to do our Bookcloaks stream. We're going to do it a little bit different because we've got 2 guests tonight. We're going to take each chapter in turn. I'll do a very quick overview and then turn it over for all of you on the panel here to talk about either a favorite part or a bit of foreshadowing. We'll run the rounds, open discussion, and if there's anything more that we need to say about said chapter, we'll do it then, and then move on to the next one. So rather than grouping into kind of buckets of 3s, I think we're going to give each chapter its treatment. But because we've got an expanded panel, we're going to try and be a little bit more efficient about it. So, Web of the Pattern. This is the first chapter we're going through tonight. I have it up here so I can find the passages if you guys want. But in this one, it's basically Rand at the Queen's Blessing in Camelin. All the serving maids are basically giving him, sex eyes. Not super horny like the show is horny with its gross shit, but like proper Victorian romance style. Rand is still getting used to all the girls' attention. But that eventually drives him to go into the library of the Queen's Blessing, where he is first completely dumbfounded by the amount of books that is available in Basil Gill's collection. He even sees a copy of Travels Among the Sea Folk that even Tam always wanted to read. And then we get introduced to a lot of people's favorite character. Loyal is there hiding out because the bigots of Camelin think he's a Trolloc. But we get a wonderful piece of world building, which is the whole concept of Taviran, the pattern, lace of ages, and how individuals affect the fates of others. So, Spaced, I'm going to go to you for this first chapter, Web of the Pattern 36, and let us know either your favorite part about this or something that maybe you picked up on a reread that you didn't pick up the first time through.
All right. Well, since I assume someone will eventually bring up the Taviran stuff, I think instead what I want to go with is Loyal mistaking Rand for an Aielman. So he basically he goes over the traditional Aiel greeting: till shade is gone, until water is gone, into the shadow with teeth bared, screaming defiance with the last breath, to spit in Sightbinder's eye on the last day. And then that comes across as a little bit. Well, the first time I read it, I didn't quite catch what was going on with Loyal mistaking him for an Aiel man, and then.
Yep.
And then when Rand denies it, Loyal just goes, "Yeah, you see, the book, everything is so different from my books. I didn't even notice you weren't an Aiel man."
But did you catch the second part, though, right? Where Rand asks about Avendasora, and Loyal's response is, "You know better than that, you of all people."
That's another.
That part? And then here's my favorite part of this. Are you playing a joke on me? Sometimes you Aielmen think the oddest things are funny.
Yeah, so we get an early introduction to Aiel humor, and then
An early introduction to everything about the Aiel. This is fantastic.
yeah, so that was a great part of foreshadowing that I didn't really catch on to the first time I read through this chapter, because it didn't really dawn on me that Rand's appearance would be so noteworthy, going as he traveled around the world and going forward and all that fun stuff.
All right, LPK, how about you? So Spaced Oyster took all the fun Aiel highlights. Do you want to hop on the Taviran grenade? Kind of do that one, or did you have something separate that you wanted to discuss on this chapter?
Oh, I'll dodge the grenade. I'll jump on just sort of a little more world building that takes place, like a lot of it through Loyal describing like different places where the groves have been, like where the world starts to be expanded upon and upon and upon with all these old locations. He starts name dropping the old tongue name for Carrion, like a Calaran Alalan or something, very like an 8-syllable name for a city. Yeah, Alcarainalan.
Hill of the Golden Dawn.
Yes, but it's just a neat transition in this part of the book. It's about 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of the way through, and a lot of the book has been sort of a tunnel vision. You know, get to this point, we're going here, we're under attack, run, save yourself. You know, help your friends, and then you get to Camelin, and everything starts to be built and expanded out, and the world starts getting bigger and bigger, and you sort of get an idea that there's much more sort of in the works for these characters, and you see it through Loyal, who is himself stands almost 10 feet tall. So the big character makes the world that much bigger, and I just think it's what you gotta love about the Ogier. Not just Loyal, everybody's favorite, but the Ogier in the world themselves. They play a very unique role.
And if you'll indulge me, I'll call back that what I like is the callback to Manetheren.
Yes,
Rand does after he says, "No, I'm not an Aielman." But since Loyal knows about all these different places, he might know the name of the two rivers, because that wouldn't be in his books. But he would know Manetheren, and he would know the history behind it that Moraine took them through in the early chapters. So, all right. Steve, we're gonna make Kenny go fourth, but do you want to talk about Taviran, or did you have something else that you wanted to do?
No, I actually had something else.
All right. Looks like
So-
I'm gonna be hopping on this grenade, but that'll be fine.
So I just liked how, excuse me, when Rand starts to tell his story, he kind of suddenly finds that he can't stop telling the story, and he kind of just spills it all out. He almost even gets to where he's telling him about channeling, and then stops himself. And it's just the way that he so instinctively trusts Loyal to do what, to not judge him. Basically, he's finally able to, like LPK said, like stop, kind of unwind a little bit. I just always liked that a lot, that he immediately trusts this person, and the person's worthy of his trust.
Let me see. I'm trying to find the passage. I think it's a little bit later.
I don't
Yeah.
quite recall. I think it might be after the Ailman mix-up.
Yeah, I just found it. So part of him was horrified at what he was doing, but almost as if he were two people, one trying to hold his tongue while the other felt the relief of being able to tell it finally. Now,
Yeah.
Steve, question here before we let Kenny speak. But do you think this is the Taviran nature as well? I know it kind of gets hinted at that people aren't able to control what they say when they're in the presence of Taviran, but is that something that applies to Taviran themselves?
I mean, maybe we can wait till we get to the Taviran part for me to talk about this. I think sometimes a little too much is put on them being Taviran. So I would say that I think this is just, it's a psychological thing of he finally has someone to talk to about this.
A friendly giant that he trusts implicitly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this chapter's so good. All right, Kenny, how about you?
So you've
You're
already
fourth, but you've probably got a number of things that you want to discuss still.
the part I wrote down as my favorite. Y'all have already danced around it a lot, but y'all actually didn't mention it. But it has to do with the Manetheren. When he mentions Manetheren, and I just like Loyal's almost roller coaster of emotions as he's going through, where he's like, "Oh, you're an Aielman," and then he's like, "Oh no, I don't even know where the Two Rivers is," and he's all sad. And then he mentions Manetheren, and Loyal brightens up again. And then he recalls what happened to Manetheren, and then he's sad again. And I just love his reaction to where he says, "We couldn't get there in time. We were too late. I share your pain." And Rand's just like, "What are you talking about, Loyal? It's been 2,000 years."
But do you picture, like, if they did Loyal correctly, like the big tufted ears, do you think his ears would have basically been dipping, like perking up and dipping down with his emotions, like constantly, like the dog from the dog dragon from the Neverending Story kind of thing? Or...
Well, if they wanted to do it right, his ears would have been flicking a lot, because Rand keeps has his eyes fixated on them as they keep flicking.
All right, so I'm gonna hop on the grenade. I really like the concept of Taviran. There's a lot that goes into it because there's been enough that's kind of already established about time being a wheel, so it's cyclical, and people have life threads, and that our fates are woven together in a pattern. And anybody who's taken any type of like Greek mythology or saw even the Disney Hercules movie would have gotten some type of conception of what this means, right? It's a spinning wheel. The threads of fate come out, and you could get cut, but it all gets woven together into some intricate thing. But somebody's, if you've done any type of, I don't want to say spinstering. What is it? Spinning or wool or any type
Weaving.
of. Yeah, okay, I guess weaving.
I'm sorry.
Or maybe knitting?
Knitting's fun. Yes.
You can tell I haven't done this, but anyway, there are some threads essentially that are more important than others, right? The guiding wire, so you can see where the metaphor is coming from, and of course, it doesn't explain fully what the powers are that are associated with being Taviran up front, because that's kind of what you see in hindsight after maybe a chapter or two ahead that might not make complete sense on your first read of it, where you just basically go, well, that was interesting. How did he get out of this? Or that wasn't realistic or whatever. it then later dawns on you, oh, this is what he was doing with establishing or introducing the Taviran concept here, and then showing you how it played out. And then on a reread, like what we've done this time around, I think Kenny, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, we've kind of noticed it in like the bathhouse at the Stag and Lion in Barrelon, where the people start speaking or telling them too much information and don't seem to be able to control themselves. But it definitely comes into play in like book 6. Or sorry, no, it's book 6 when Davram Bashir shows up, who's chasing Mazrim Taim, and instead of continuing on his mission to hunt a false dragon, he decides to take his 9,000 Saldeans and just become Rand's general. Like, okay, because he needs it. And obviously what Robert Jordan is doing is he's giving himself free Deus Ex Machina with 3 of his characters, because he's plotted everything out. He's able to course correct. If his story goes too wide in one direction, he can always basically say, well, Taviran means that the story needs to follow the plot as laid out, but it's not me doing it, it's the pattern. And my characters can have inexplicable coincidences happen to them because I said so, and that's part of their magical power. So in one way, it's a cop-out. In another way, it is a 4.5 million word story, so like he's gonna need to do this. And in a third way, this is the most brilliant thing in writing that you could conceive of and integrate it into your story. And anybody who criticizes it is secretly just jealous that they didn't think of it first.
If you don't mind a bit of jumping way ahead, another great example is in the Shadow Rising book 4. Perrin wants to go close the Waygate that Loyal and Gaul had already left to do. But every time he starts to make his way out of town, somebody asks him, hey, can you go do this thing for me real quick? Or can I get you to do this other thing? Or can I get some feedback on this thing? And by the time he finally is able to get away and start leaving, it's already night and he can't go.
He weaves it in so well in a number of different ways. Like the whole Matt and Abu Dar stretch in book 7, where he's just off having a party with Beslin and drinking all the time. And then finally the Supergirls decide, we're getting nowhere in our search. Why don't we just use the Taviran and like take him with us once? And then he actually ends up finding the place simultaneously as them. Or now when they do visit Matt, if you recall, that's when they first meet Satala Nan. So they get guided by the pattern to something they didn't know that they were looking for, which was all the kinswomen, which is also an interesting feature of the Taviran hood. So I think Robert Jordan wrote himself enough of get out of jail free or Deus Ex Machina to be useful, but he also provided us with a lot of fun things within the story and playing with coincidence that could chalk it up to these 3 characters. But I will say he only used it for those 3 characters, so I can't appreciate it.
And then, if you don't mind keeping the Taviran discussion going a little bit more, it can also serve as a bit of a red herring for this book, or at least it did for me on my first read through. Because when Loyal was explaining the Taviran stuff, I recalled a few things from earlier chapters, like when Rand first got on the boat and a mast hit the Trolloc that was chasing him, or the lightning strike during Play for Your Supper, or around that time. After Loyal explained Taviran, my first thought was, oh, that's why that happened. Rather than...
So Robert Jordan still had you a little bit confused, or a little bit hoodwinked about Rand and his channeling.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's kind of the anti-expert read stream that we're trying to do, Space, because we're talking about stuff you find on a second read, rather than remembering back to maybe some of the misdirection you fell for on the first read. But no, I appreciate that. That's always fun to hear.
And
All right.
Here's one for the Taviran thing that I liked. This was when Rand was explaining, kind of like summarizing to Loyal what it is, like kind of what he got from Loyal. And he says, I could become a shepherd and live my life on Emmons Field, and that's a small change. And then he said, but if I wanted to become a king, that would be outside the pattern. And Loyal's like, yeah, sometimes the change chooses you. So it's exactly what happens. Like Rand's very nature pulls him to become a king.
I did catch that today as I was reading it. I should have actually highlighted that, but thank you, Kenny, for bringing that up. That is actually a brilliant part. All right, so let's review some of the chat comments. See who's showed up. So Lady Balefire is here. Harmony of the Spheres.
She wanted to talk about cats in game.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
we can do that.
And
That'll
there's a
come
good
up in a little bit. I think
there's a great cat lap action when Rand
there
gets
always
back.
is. I think Gadfly's talking about the golden ratio.
That's
Yes.
really interesting. Like the cycle of a wheel turning is going to need to have a correct ratio, and the mechanism of Taviran would be to smooth that ratio, keep that ratio the same through the ages. As the 7 ages come and go, it's got to move, and it's got to move in the predictable pattern. That's really quite something.
And then I think
Let's talk about this offline. I have no idea what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
and then
Golden
I think
ratio.
Lady
I thought that's the ratio of the Fibonacci sequence.
oh,
Sorry.
sorry, just Lady Balefire. I think she also pointed out that all the sewing related metaphors. So your mom's long arm machine is the wheel, and the quilt is the pattern, and the pins in it are the Taviran. My mom didn't knit that much, so I have no idea what that means.
Knitting, crochet, okay.
Tattooing. That's quite provocative.
I don't know if we're doing that. All right, so okay, getting some advice in here. All right, good stuff. So chat is here and having fun with this. I think we've established this is the Taviran chapter. This is where it kind of gets introduced, and I think this needs to be kind of front and center for the Rand chapters coming up. But before we get there, we actually have a Nynaeve chapter. So let me get to that. And this one is called The Long Chase. And this is a catch-up chapter with Moraine, Lan, and Nynaeve hunting after, they don't know who yet, one of the boys who is to the north of the road. And he lost his coin but got it back. And it ends essentially this chapter where Lan brings Nynaeve into the plan because Moraine is going to be responsible for a distraction. Lan is going to be responsible for an extraction. And Nynaeve can help facilitate the diversion, which is cutting the horse lines and making sure all those dastardly white cloaks scatter in a million directions. So LPK, I'm going to ask you first on this particular chapter, did you have a favorite part or a bit of foreshadowing, something you didn't pick up on the first read? I know a lot of people don't pick up on the Lan-Nynaeve relationship until it becomes very obvious later in the book, but there's some hints of that here. But over to you if you want to talk about that.
I'd be happy to. Nynaeve is my favorite character in these books. Just to let you know, I mean, and you don't get that after your first read. Your first read, Rand's the man. You know, Rand's going to knock the shit out of the Forsaken. He's going to, jump over a wall and bang your sister. You know, Rand's got it all. But if you read through these books a couple times, you really pick up on there's a lot of strength to the character of Nynaeve. She probably my second or third time through it, I was like, man, I know Rand's got a lot of stuff going on for him, but I could really read about some light abusive friendship with Nynaeve right about now. But this chapter in particular, you sort of see her at the very beginning when she's on her way to sort of her major revelation as a character, the Golden Crane. I don't want to spoil a whole lot of things, but she does a lot of character growth to get to that point. And here you see her from the beginning where she's always just sort of, and it's always sort of framed between herself and Lan, where she's just one step behind him always, and sort of and always trying to catch up and prove herself to him. And it's just, and in doing so, she exposes herself as being very apprehensive, very insecure about herself, apprehensive that she can't do what she wants to do. She can't be what she wants to be, or be as she sees herself to truly be. But at the very same time that she's having these feelings of self-doubt, she's being extraordinarily brave in this, especially in this circumstance where she's, behind enemy lines with 200 armed soldiers, covering, like going Metal Gear Solid on, like the horse lines, pure stealth espionage action. And she accomplishes exactly, she doesn't just accomplish her task correctly. She steals a horse and finds Bella, the greatest horse ever ridden. She brings Bella out of the darkness. She steals a horse for Perrin to get out because she's like, at the same time she's doubting herself, but the other time she's proving herself to be brilliant because she knows that the Emmons Fielders are going to need horses to get out of there. They're going to have to hit the road. So, and just as a character foreshadowing moment, like sort of that, like one step behind, like a Lan is completely flipped by the time you get to the Golden Crane, and she's got him, right by his like Kandori or his what is it the Hadori. She's got him by the Hadori big time, and not only that, but she's got the entire like all of the men of Malkir. She goes from a woman who couldn't even like wrangle the men's council in Emmons Field, to somebody who inspires the entire Borderlands. Just as a character, that foreshadowing, and just sort of seeing where she begins in the Eye of the World. It's always just a pleasure to sort of look at and just go forward with it. So, I could go on.
Thanks, LVK. This honestly, it's a great chapter, and if you're able to read it in hindsight, kind of knowing where it's going, and again, this is the benefit of a reread, especially a reread after some of those late books where the success has been achieved. I think that it was always set up, and just kind of knowing where it's supposed to go, and you see those early nuggets here of, as you're saying, Nynaeve kind of trying to prove herself to Lan. Really, like it almost feels like she's tagging along with Lan and Moraine just because she's kind of interested in Lan, but because it's told from her point of view, she'd never admit that to herself, and therefore she'll never admit it to the reader, at least not in this book. Spaced, getting back to you on this Nynaeve chapter, what is your favorite part, or perhaps something that you didn't pick up on a first read, but definitely on a second or third?
Let's see. Well, my favorite parts are definitely a lot of Nynaeve's sort of internal thoughts in relation to Lan. Like a lot of her thoughts are always like, "Oh, burn him! How does he not notice?" She's got like this one-sided rivalry with him going on. So she's constantly thinking, "Oh well, what would Lan think if I only did the job not all the way through?" Or does he really think he can outperform me? I'll show him.
So he thinks I'm good, does he? I'll do it, she said.
Which is especially funny because Lan giving that compliment, like, if you're half as good as I think you are, you'll do fine. It's like, compare that to any compliment he gives Rand. It's like, oh, you might manage not to cut your foot off with this sword. So it's like night and day on the compliment. It's like, yeah, he just paid you a huge compliment, Nynaeve.
I wouldn't have known that, she said sweetly. I only grew up around shepherds. He grunted, and she smiled into the darkness. Well, do it now then, he said. He basically goes on. I don't know. This would be so fun to have seen acted out properly, I think. But
yeah, and it might just be me being blind to subtle stuff on Lan's end, but this rivalry Nynaeve has going on with Lan seems entirely one-sided on her part. So it's like he's completely oblivious to the fact that she's trying to one-up him or stand out in his eyes.
I think that's honestly fair, because Lan is basically on day 25 of finally he's on like his dragon mission, right? He's been on this mission for 20 years with Moraine. So I think at least initially his eyes on the prize. Maybe towards the end of the book he gets tempted from it, but that's not for our remit, I guess, right now. But But yeah, I definitely agree with you. It seems incredibly one-sided and very humorous as a result. All right, Kenny, I'm going to let you go third, and then we'll make Steve go last. Well, no, I'll go last. Steve will go fourth.
My part would be when Perrin loses his coin and Moraine notices. So basically, just her dialogue whenever, or when, her reaction when he loses his coin, and then her dialogue when he gets it back. I just love that line for whatever reason. When she just says, "All will be well," he's recovered his coin or whatever it was. I just love the line.
He did not die, but he no longer has the token. In the morning, I will keep on as we've been going. When I get close, I can find him without the coin.
But especially the dichotomy where you see her one of the few times you actually see Moraine a little out of sorts, especially through Nynaeve's eyes, where she's, I think it even mentions it, unflappable Moraine like sits up like surprised, it's like because the coin's gone. But then her,
he has regained the coin wisdom. All will be well. She lay down on her blankets with a sigh, as almost at once was breathing in deep slumber. So it's a good part.
Yeah.
I got a question for you about this, Kenny.
Mhm.
Is this him losing the coin because Jeff from
Yeah.
Bornhold took it? Or was it the steading? Did the steading impact the coin? Or am I mixing up my timeline here?
I don't know if it would be the steading, because weren't they there for quite a while into the night?
Well, they would have lost the coin and entered the steading on the same day. I'm presuming.
So the coin and the binding or whatever on it's very similar to the water bond in a lot of ways. And RJ was always really weird about what gets dissolved in the steading. Like he says, illusion, like weaving a mirror mist, will go away if you walk in a steading, but a shield would stay, and the water bond doesn't get dissolved. So I want to say it's when Bornhold takes the coin and then gives it back, because it's Perrin is in the steading. Like Space said, he's in there overnight. Like they're camped out, so I would think they're in there all night. And this is in the middle of the night whenever Moraine says he gets his coin back.
And this might be my.
That being said, does he actually get his coin back from Bornhold after
they
the
give him
interrogation?
They give him all of his belongings back except for his axe. It says it doesn't specify coin, I don't think, but they do say he can have back all of his possessions.
Yeah, this might just be my memory being poor, but didn't Dane actually specifically pick that coin up off of his desk when first interrogating Perrin and Egwene?
He does.
Jarrett Beyer. Dane isn't here.
Oh, Jarrett.
Jeffrin picks it up and says it's
Jeffrin.
a
Okay.
Tarvalon mark.
Oh yeah, that's right. And that most people outside of the witches would get rid of those coins as quick as they could get them, because it's incriminating. All right, Steve, how about you? Did you have a favorite part in this Nynaeve chapter?
I just like the fact that the wolves are there, so he's still keeping his eye on them. Like if Moraine and Lan weren't there to break Perrin and Egwene out, like you get the sense that he would be trying to. He's trying to figure out a way. So I like that. It's a nice touch for that character.
All right, I can't believe nobody hit on this part as their favorite. I guess you leave it to me to highlight all the good stuff. But how about the two white cloaks who are supposed to be guarding the camp, and all they do is like walk a straight line, like they're from a video game, like one of the early Hitman games or whatever, where they basically just come to the same point. They don't even like look left or right. All they say is "all is well in the night, light protect us" or whatever, and then they go back on their rounds again. These are like the world's worst sentries, but I love it for some reason.
In bright white, so they show up in the night as well, so you can dodge them. Yeah, I think I mentioned it on a previous stream. I love the white cloaks, all their little camp. When they're in Emmons Field later and they do kind of the same thing and have to get past them, they're walking around in their little sentry, like little automatons or wind-up soldiers walking along. I love it.
They literally say the same things to each other. All is well with the night, one white cloak shape announced. The light illumine us and protect us from the shadow. All is well with the night. The other replied, "The light illuminates and protect us from the shadow." They're fucking robots. I mean, this is great.
Yeah,
And
it's
then-
slander. It's slander.
Oh, come on. Sneed, you always said we were post-Galad White Cloaks, not these early ones.
Reform it, the reform chapter.
But it just goes to further highlight just how much the White Cloaks are very rigidly uniform. I think would be the right word. So they patrol this way because that's strictly how you do it by the book. You walk this path, you greet a guard as you see him, and then you keep going.
Gadfly's making the point here that, like, what would they expect to find out in the middle of nowhere? Well, they just got apparently attacked by, according to Jarrett Bio, like 20 dark friends and a whole
And
bunch
50
of wolves. So you'd think they might even be on higher alert, but I don't know. I always kind of liked it. All right, these are your villains, but it's just like they're NPCs. Oh well. Do we have anything further to say about this chapter, or do we want to move on to the Perrin chapter?
I have a quick question for the panel here, because Nynaeve mentions it. Do you guys think listening to the wind is a form of foretelling?
It seems to
Good
be
question.
because
Like-
well, a lot of the times when Nynaeve is hearing the wind, it's always before some impending disaster later on in the series, and she wisens up to it because she at one point in the later book she tells Rand there is a storm coming, and I'm not talking about the wind or the weather.
Right, almost
Yeah.
like one of the talents that was lost to the Age of Legends, sort of mixed with some like colloquial, like wise woman folklore.
Yeah,
At the very least, hers definitely morphs into something like that if it wasn't to start with. But I've seen theories on that where it's like it is a form of foretelling and it evolved into weather because that's what the people in Two Rivers would need to know. Like they don't really need to know anything else. Weather's the most important thing. So that's kind of what it always was. I don't know because Moraine does say it evolves like actual water and air, and so you would think it actually is like an actual weather sense, but hers does seem to evolve. So I don't know.
And I think there's some overlap too when they talk about Mother Grub for Matt, like there are women hedge doctors, there are herbalists, and sometimes they're also soothsayers or fortune tellers. So all these kind of skills and talents kind of operate together from the sounds of things. So honestly, it could be part foretelling, but I like to think of foretelling manifests its way in the book series, kind of like how it manifests for Elida, or for Nicola, or for Guitarra Moroso. That they actually say something, they make a prophecy. Oh, nice kitty. A big prophecy, and sometimes the person doing the foretelling isn't conscious of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Anyways, did we have anything further on this Nynaeve chapter, or should we move on to Perrin and his fantastic insights
Well,
about the nature of reality?
would now be a good time for a slight maybe this isn't so great bit.
If you dare.
Well, just very slight. They ask Nynaeve to go and cut the horses loose and tell her that she needs to get them ready for the distraction, and then they don't tell her what Moraine's going to do for the distraction, which is call down lightning.
That's funny. That's not bad.
Well, yes, but it would have been better to tell her that was going to happen. And then I guess you could argue, should Moraine even be able to call down lightning like that? Because it's using the one power as a weapon, and it's not against a shadow spawn or someone threatening her life or her warder's life.
If she's aiming at the ground, it's not a weapon. You can rationalize
Yeah.
that.
I think you could. I think Kenny's right. You could probably rationalize it, especially if it was just there to distract and spook the horses and cause the White Cloaks camp to get in disarray. It would have been fine.
Yeah. Or
He-
an alternative is she knows science-related things to lightning, and so she's causing the clouds to build up electricity, and the lightning's coming down naturally, and she just sped that up. Then,
I don't know about.
well, yeah, that's probably a reach, but if that's
Here's
have to
one
read this a
space. I
little
don't know if you've heard this one. There's the way she reacts right before the lightning strikes, where she's sitting there like, "All right, Moraine, do your distraction now. Do it now." The timing of it, people have thought that maybe that first lightning strike was Nynaeve, like with like instinctual channeling, since she still doesn't really know what she's doing.
Ooh.
And then Moraine's just following suit with more lightning bolts after that. I don't really believe that, but at least just when I was reading that, I was like, that would actually be kind of interesting if Nynaeve did that on accident, because it like I think it hits like right in front of her, like right by the horses. But
The
That's
only
interesting.
issue with that interpretation would be that she's not very angry here,
right,
she wouldn't have gone through the same, I think, sensations or whatever that accompanies either Rand's channeling into Bella or on the spray, or even Howell Goad, as far as like sensation and tingling and kind of other feelings associated with it. And I think if Robert Jordan had meant for this to actually be Nynaeve, we probably would have gotten some of that from inside the POV character. But I don't know. I think from this, it's abruptly lightning shattered the night overhead. I don't think it was billowing clouds or a building storm. I think this is a pure, Aes Sedai style lightning bolt, and targeted not to where it would actually kill someone and be used as a weapon, but done deliberately in order to spook the horses and create a distraction. So,
all right. Well, that was the only minor problem
And
I
I'm-
had to bring up.
I'm
So-
not going to forget it.
I don't think the White Cloaks would buy it, though, Dane. I think they would hang her immediately. I think they would take Space side big time.
No. Don't. She's gonna not wear her ring, and then Lan is not going to be obvious, and then she's going to be wounded, and they're going to tell her she needs to go get healed by an Aes Sedai.
Mhm.
That's what's
That
going
is
to
how
happen.
the White Cloaks treat strange women they meet on the road, dressed in all blue.
All blue. Yeah. That's exactly how it would happen in the books and in that. Oh fuck! I promise not to even talk about that, so let's not do it. All right. Let's go on to the next chapter. The next chapter is from Perrin's point of view. We see the rescue from his side. What I really like about this, and I'm not going to end kind of on the actual ending of the chapter, I love Perrin's insight. I'm not going to give it away in case this is someone else's favorite, but you really get a great sense of him thinking things through. So, Steve, do you want to go first?
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right.
Well, you're gonna get
we'll
your
give you the
chance to
number
talk about that, I guess. Well, actually, not quite. I want to know: is this the longest Lan speech in the entire series? That like, because when he's talking to Perrin here, which I was also thinking that it might be because he just found out Perrin can talk to wolves. I'm wondering if maybe he thinks, oh, this might be the guy we're looking for, because he gives like a real long talk here, telling Perrin about the kind of just what you have to do and who you got to be, like, and he kind of even like connects with them, like saying like, hey, yeah, they all worry about that stuff, but me and you, Blacksmith, like, we know what we have to do. Like, I love this part, but it's just funny how right at the very end he just like goes on for like a whole monologue of Lan talking.
I think I found the page here. So Lan talking is all of this and pretty much all of this, and it might even extend on to the next page.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And then this. Yeah,
and even Lan is like, well, you know, what have I been, like, almost like, why have I been talking so much? Like, you know, it's.
Well, I'm not too sure if he would assume, or if he'd be making the leap that maybe Perrin's the one they've been hunting for. I think based on what they know of the prophecies, they had Rand pegged almost instantly. but Moraine is pretty adamant about how she's pretty sure that all three boys, not just Rand, are important. And
Yeah.
if that's the assumption Moraine's reaching, I'd assume Lan has also reached the same conclusion, because they're partners in crime. They talk to each other about everything.
And let's
And-
also not forget the condition that Perrin is in after Lan's rescue. He's been beaten to shit and basically tortured for a week by the White Cloaks, right?
Yeah, he's
so. I don't know. I think Lan is also here to impart kind of like, don't fall into despair or pick yourself back up. You're needed and all that other good stuff. So, positive male role model. Who'd have thought?
Mm-hmm.
I do like in his monologue, Loel mentions it that they all might be, but Lane pretty much confirms Perrin's Taviran here with all of his talk of what of the coincidence, what of the chance that you would meet Elias like at this one moment, and like all these things happening, as they need to happen. It's pretty much. I think it's not the first hint Perrin's Taviran. I think Loyal might have been that, but I think it pretty much seals the deal. Like that.
Yeah,
that's when you first can really notice it.
Two chapters later, we're already introduced into the pattern is forming a great web. I think that was the name of the chapter, and that is exactly. Let me highlight that a different color here. So the pattern is forming a great web. Some call Lace of Ages, and you lads are central to it. So yeah, I think you're 100% right there. Completely cluing in that not just Rand is important, even though it is the Rand show for a lot of this book. LPK, sir, what about you? Your favorite part on this chapter, or
there? Oh yeah,
or something that you didn't see the first time around.
Well, I have a favorite sentence that I just thought was a really cool sentence. It was it was a couple paragraphs past help comes when Dapple is talking to Perrin. It's then the darkness invading the light became Lan. I thought that whole image is just totally badass. It's like just I don't know. It's I don't know, just cool. How else can you say it? It's just a cool thing. His cloak swirling through shades of gray and black as he moved.
This was I had this as my favorite part too, essentially, because it's essentially Lan just being Batman.
Yeah.
Like he just snatches the guy out of the night and he doesn't hear anything, he just disappears.
Just cool. Yeah. Just good old action. But the other thing that I noticed that that is called back throughout the books quite a bit is the suffering that the characters will go through, and how no matter how badly they're beaten, lots of times their suffering is like sort of healed. Like there's like a theme of sickness and suffering being sort of like sickness. You recover from the things that hurt you in these books, unless you're Rand, and then you have to wait a little bit for it. But it's sort of something that's sort of worked throughout a lot of the books in the series. Just chronic pain, chronic suffering, and sort of dealing with it, and eventually overcoming it. And I think I don't know if this is the first time you see it with like where he just goes on for a couple of paragraphs of just how bruised and like welted Perrin is, and like I think it's like Nynaeve channels even, right? Because she gets so upset.
Or that, she tries to, or there's
no, she heals him for sure.
He feels it go hot and cold.
Yeah,
and
she's
then the
rubbing
bruises fade.
Yeah, she rubs that ointment into his bruises, and then they fade instantly.
Did I
she
miss
gets pissed
this?
at him.
She gets mad at the thought that somebody from the Two Rivers could be treated so poorly by Buyer.
And then I think she's also upset because Moraine's been saying a lot of stuff. So she's like, she says this. Next time you can go to her for healing.
I missed this. All right. Well, this is a pleasant surprise because every single time you read through these books, you pick up something else. So I actually like this interpretation. Yeah, she is angry. I just thought her poultices might actually be that good, where they basically go from purple to brown to yellow in a almost lickety split. This is great. So maybe she was channeling there. This is awesome and instinctual. I love it.
Yeah, okay. And then the following line there, she looked a little surprised herself and strangely frightened.
Yeah, 'cause
Oh
she
yeah,
realizes
that's
it.
good.
Yeah.
That's so good. All right. So Steve got to go first. LPK got you second. Sorry, Kenny, we're gonna let Spaced Oyster go third. Spaced, you sir, favorite part or something that you missed on a first read, or apparently on a 35th read, like what I'm doing now,
Well,
which is right here.
it's a little difficult to nail down, but I think I'm going to go with when Child Byer's going in there to wake Perrin and Egwene up. He kicks Perrin awake, and then Perrin yells at Egwene, "Hey, wake! You got to wake up now," because he knows Byer would kick her if she's not awake, but he doesn't because she wakes up before he's done bruising Perrin.
So Byer is a good dude.
Yeah, Byer's a gentleman. He won't kick you awake if you're already awake.
Standards. That's amazing. I love it.
It's also just a small thing on Perrin. Even when he's being bound and beaten, he's still doing what he can to look out for Egwene and keep her as safe as he can.
Like a big brother and not a simp. Is that what you're saying? Or is that what I
Pretty.
just said?
We could both say it.
Oh, I love these books. I hate the show. No, it's a very good point. Byer's a bit of a lunatic. He kind of goes off the deep end. I don't know. Do we want to talk about Byer? Do you think he was being influenced by like Grandal at the end there, or what the heck was his deal throughout everything?
Yeah, he was around Peyton Fane also, so
I'm also wondering if he feels guilty about what he's doing here, right? Like his obsession with Perrin might be precisely because Perrin got away, but even though that was kind of his plan, that didn't fully come to fruition. But if Lan smacked the shit out of him, how much does he remember, right?
Yeah, well, that could definitely make him a lot more salty about Perrin's escape, because they had the suspected dark friend. They were bringing him to. They were going to. Well, Byer was going to execute him, but they were going to otherwise interrogate him and learn all his dark friend's secrets. And then he gets away because the knight came alive and attacked Child Byer. It was clearly a dark friend trick.
Yes. Okay, Kenny, how about you, sir, on this this Perrin chapter? A favorite part, or nice insight?
Well, since we already did the Lan as Batman, I'll do the Lan and Nynaeve romance, because there's actually a decent bit whenever she gets back from getting the horses, because Lan's going to leave and go back and get her. Moraine has to stop him, and then he's resistant to Moraine's orders. Like he doesn't want to follow her orders, and then he grabs her when she shows up, and then Nynaeve kind of laughs at his apparent concern for her. And my favorite part of that is Perrin having no idea what's going on and just being like, well, I don't understand why she's laughing at this situation. But yeah, he's just being a woolhead.
You know how it is with Perrin. Matt and Rand are so much better with girls than he is.
It's true. Very true.
Yeah, I mean, Moraine had to basically pull out the whole diadem and battle lord of the Mulkiri in order to get him to stop. Like, yeah, that halted him in his tracks. But all right, since it's up to me to kind of point out kind of what I said from the start, my favorite part about this chapter is Perrin once again being the slow, careful thinker. Because Byer is letting him go, but his story doesn't make sense. So if he was hasty about it and didn't think it through, he'd be like, "Oh, so you're just going to let me go because I'm slowing you down? Okay, that's highly kind of you. You don't want to cut my rope. Okay, there's a perfectly good rock over there. Okay, that makes sense or whatever." But no, he pauses. He's suspicious about it. He thinks it through. What is the one thing that Byer actually wants is him dead right then and there. How could he get there? Well, if he was caught in an escape attempt, then he could get killed, and then Byer gets everything that he wants. They end up going to Camelin on time. They no longer have to spend resources guarding him or Egwene, so he doesn't take the bait for it. just coincidentally, like that's the time that Land decides to Batman and show up, so it all ends up working out. But I always really liked that part of this chapter because once again it shows, Perrin's not an idiot. He's just slow and methodical and thinking things through, and it's a great early part of establishing that as his character, kind of all along. But it's something that stays consistent throughout, and I appreciate it.
And it also shows Bayar's consistent standards, for lack of a better word, because Perrin thinks, well, he could just kill us and then cut the ropes with the rock, but he's instead telling us you should try to escape so he can kill them, as they are now fugitives on the run, as opposed to executing captives and then trying to cover it up.
Exactly. It's still first degree murder, but like there's a nuance to it, right? It is premeditated, but I tricked him into like trying to run, and then I don't know, fucking Bayer. Anyways, do we want to move on to the next chapter? Or do we want to go back to Rand? Okay.
Well, there was one other small thing. Perrin's eyesight seems a little inconsistent in this part, because when he goes to retrieve Bayer's cloak, he has a tough time spotting Lan and Egwene in the dark, but his eyesight should be a lot stronger at this point in the series, because he's already seeing things in the dark that Egwene's not spotting as easily.
Yeah, but he might have his face beaten to shit, right? If he's got black eyes, I don't know.
Yeah, that could be it.
I'll give the benefit of the doubt. Plus, he's kind of in that transition because I think it's Nynaeve at the end of this chapter that first notices that his eyes are golden colored, and it's not the yellow eye fever because it's the irises and not the whites of his eyes that have changed color.
Yeah.
So this is really kind of it's here's the transition, and Egwene hasn't mentioned it yet either. And presumably, given how crazy the White Cloaks are about Perrin being shadow spawn later, Bayer would have noted it as well if that was a feature. So maybe this is exactly when it's happening. Like this is the night that his eyes change color permanently.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't recall Egwene mentioning his eyes being golden at all, and the Tinkers probably would have brought that up, even with him being with Elias.
But Bayer brings it up constantly in all subsequent encounters, right? That they think he's shadow spawned because he has those gold eyes. So, I don't know. Did we just discover something? I don't know.
I think it was meant to be a shocking for the audience to say, "Oh, his eyes are wolf eyes."
Gold.
It's almost kind of like a second adolescence for Perrin, because he gets kind of moody toward the end in the inn as well. It's like he's, obviously he's changing. Your body is changing, Perrin. Your body, like things are different now. Things your body.
There are at least like 7 Narg memes that you did on this theme LPK about puberty and changes going through your body. I hope you still have those because they nuke the Reddit. But
I have all of them. Oh goodness. But yeah, it's like
we'll do a stream about Narg posts one day, and we'll have you on. Just be like, what the fuck were you thinking with this one?
And to support Perrin's senses getting stronger at this point, he's like, I could practically smell Bayer on this cloak, and then he realizes, oh yeah, I was wearing Bayer's cloak. Crap baskets.
This is Perrin's second puberty. Oh, I love it. Okay.
This wolf puberty.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to Weaving of the Web. This is the chapter where Rand leaves the Queen's Blessing, goes through town, gets chased by the beggar, and we all know that's Padden Fane, so no need to highlight on it. Then it ends kind of, he decides, well, I can't get close enough to the procession. Here's a wall. I'm going to climb it for a big vantage. There's one of the cooler scenes where Rand is observing Logain, and he's definitely acting like a king with all the crowds there to see him. And he's basically just standing like inside his cage with one arm up on the bar. And then he looks back and he laughs at the whole crowd. And it's inexplicable. It's weird. We find out a lot later, several books later, what he's laughing about. And I always thought that was a great callback. But it ends with Rand tumbling over backwards and falling into the magical garden. Well, not really magical, but the Arthurian legend has officially begun. So, Kenny, I'm going to let you go first on this chapter, sir, because I've been keeping you last for pretty much everything. So, granted, this is probably the least interesting chapter of the night. So,
my favorite of this one would be basically the depiction of Fane, how the crowd's reaction to him, where they're so jam packed together, but like wherever he's going, it's like the white cloak effect where the crowd melts around him on steroids. And then when he actually gets into the street and finds Rand, the imaging of him's just kind of cool. He's like scuttling, and he's raises his hand, which is like a claw. Just seems very inhuman and completely unrecognizable as Fane. So it did a pretty good job making him seem very menacing here.
I'll agree with that. Spaced Oyster, did you
Yes.
have a favorite part of this chapter?
Yes, I think we actually it's while Rand is initially on the way to CeeLo Gain, he's walking through the crowd and he notices that even the white cloaks are getting bullied in the middle of the street. And I think that's actually a hint of the Tavira nature once again, but one of the smaller aspects of it that gets revealed in the Dragon Reborn, where they're shaping probability, where things that are very unlikely to happen start to become very common. In this case, townspeople subtly assaulting white cloaks.
No, you know what I think it is? I think for some reason us white cloaks actually like to highlight parts of the book where the white cloaks get shit on by everybody.
Oh no, it couldn't possibly be that.
Yeah. Steve, how about you? A favorite part or bit of foreshadowing that you saw on a second go around, but not on a first?
I mean, I love like everything about this. This is easily one of my favorite chapters. I think one thing that I noticed this time though specifically was when Rand runs away from the beggar, he runs away from him and then he stops and thinks like, man, I feel like a coward. I let a beggar chase me away. You know, like I'm not going back home. I'm going to climb this wall to see the false dragon. Like it's just I like that Rand, you know, he isn't just a little pussy. He's gonna go see the dragon. He's not gonna let the dark friends chase him away. You know.
You could also argue it's that Two Rivers stubbornness. It's like, no, I am gonna make sure I see this dragon, even if I have to climb this wall.
I think it's this part here, right, Steve? Beggar would not give up, and then for a moment he considered going back to the Queen's blessing, but he was sure he would never get another chance to see a queen. Hoped he would never have to see another false dragon. There seemed to be something cowardly in letting a bent beggar, even a dark friend, chase him into hiding. That's it right there.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I really like what that tells us about Rand's character, you know.
Fuck that bitch. That's LPK. Do you have a favorite part of this chapter?
Forward the lion. Forward the lion. The white lion takes the field. Roar defiance at the shadow. Forward the lion. Forward Andor triumphant. Very cool.
Very nice. There's not a whole lot of poetry in the books, is there? Or at least not relative to Tolkien. There's great prophecies that occasionally rhyme, but there isn't the like page after page of music and poetry. Jack of the Shadows, I think.
Yeah,
maybe
there's
one
music.
of them, but there's a little bit, but it's not. This is one of those parts, right? It sticks out when he throws it in his first book, I believe. Okay, if you guys will indulge me, my favorite part from this section is early on in the chapter when Rand is going through town, and he's got the red scarf that he's wrapped his sword in, and he is seeing way more people with white wrappings, a white cockade, white armbands, and he's just lamenting, like, well, obviously that's why the red was cheaper. The politics is swaying one way, and he's lamenting his choice and how he did it. But then he gets the realization that, here we go. Would Basil Gill or Master Gill have helped you if you'd showed up wearing the white? And I always kind of like that. So it's, we've already been introduced to that Taviran thing. So chance and randomness is not really that random. But here's it's an instance of Rand kind of having that realization as well. Like, okay, stuff might be tough right now, but in the grand scheme of things, what's actually better? And that's, I got a place to sleep now. I've got someone who's giving me food to eat, where I can lie low. And yeah, if I had white wrappings around my sword right now, maybe I could fit in with this crowd right here. But I probably would have gotten booted right the fuck out of the Queen's blessing when I showed up, and he wouldn't even want to like have a conversation with me, Basil Gill. So I don't know. It struck me this time around reading that. I really like this part. So okay. Anything else that we want to cover in this chapter, or should we move on to the mother of all chapters, where we're going to meet so many central characters who have absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the story of the Eye of the World, but they all feature very prominently in the books going forward?
Well, it could just be one more little thing, but with Rand's decision to instead climb a wall to see the false dragon instead of going back to the inn, that might have actually delayed Fane in finding Rand. Where Rand and Matt have been staying, since if he had gone straight back to the inn, Fane might have been able to just stalk him there. But because Rand instead climbs a wall and falls into the palace, he takes a very circuitous route to get back to the inn.
Yeah, it's difficult to assess the counterfactuals, but I'm kind of liking the way you're thinking there. But it's like, personally, I think, yeah, Rand was always destined to go to the palace. And I think that's definitely what gets established 2 chapters from now, when Rand is relaying his crazy adventure for the day, and immediately Loyal's like, yep, Taviran, bud. That sounds exactly like it. You met all these people. That's exactly what happened. So we just need to bear that in mind with these chapters. Is Rand is basically getting strung along by his fate. He doesn't really have real control over this. And if something seems coincidental, go with it. If you think that's bad storytelling, you're just jealous you didn't come up with this plot device. I said that at the start of the stream. All right. LPK. I want to take us through the very first what you love about the Web Titans. This is a 9,500 word chapter. It's one of the longest ones in the book. There's a lot happens. I think we're probably going to run through this twice. So if you just want to stick to one thing that we'll chat about, we'll probably get back to you for a second thing.
Can you indulge me? Just like we can just talk about the legends of King Arthur, the stories of the Grail, just for a second. Yeah. Can you get back to like even right after the prologue, like right before chapter 1, to those 2 paragraphs about the dragon and then the dragon reborn? Can you get back to that just real quick?
Yeah.
Like with this chapter, like nearly every named character is a character pulled out of Arthurian legend, other than Rand himself as the stand-in for King Arthur. There's, you have Elaine, you have Morgase, you've got Galad, you have Gawain. Like, unbeknownst to Rand, his mother, Tigraine, is also from Arthurian legend. Ygritte, that's Arthur's mommy. But you've got the idea of King Arthur, and you've got the idea, which has been talked about in a couple other streams, about Grail quests and quests in general. One of the most important parts of the Grail quest is the question itself. It's the special question of, what is like the holy question, like who does the Grail serve in the movie that was made from it, or and you get the Fisher King story where the land is tied to the king and the king is tied to the land, and who is worthy of the Grail quest. But the important thing is the question that's asked. And these 2 paragraphs here I just want to do this. This is very indulgent. This is for the fans of the books. But these two paragraphs here create a question, and they've created a question in my mind. The first time I read this book, like it was in 2005. I was on an airplane in a flight overseas to Japan, and you get here to the shadow fell upon the land, and it's the breaking of the world. Luz Perrin, or not Luz Perrin, Luz Theron. He destroys the world. His resume looked real good up until the very end, and then the world ended. And then you get to the fourth age, and it came to pass those days as we come before that the Dragon Reborn comes and saves everything. So somewhere, and then could you just and then the next page, the very first. This is like the fourth age. This is a right there. That's the important part. That's sort of where like the hook starts to get into you. The fourth age, the question sort of starts. Then go on to the very first part of chapter 1. A age called the third age. So what in the heck happened between the end of the world and the fourth age that was so different? How do you fix what was screwed up so badly that the world ended? How does that happen? That's the question. That's the question that Robert Jordan asks here by sort of like putting the chronology of that fourth age there. You see that it's going to be okay, but how? And
with the cyclicality of the Wheel of Time, you don't know if it actually comes to pass. Like, is he basically saying, well, the very first thing we see is historical fragments of the fourth age, but then it's also, okay, we're in the third age. So we going back in time, or have we leapt ahead 7 or 6 ages and now we're seeing maybe the final turning? So
who's that question for, though? The characters in the story, they don't get to that until maybe the fourth book, when Rand starts going through the doorways, and maybe when Herod Fell starts talking about it, the sixth book. But Robert Jordan puts the question right here, and he does it for the audience. He does it for us. Like, I think this is maybe part of the reason why people enjoy rereading these books. It's because it's a very personal experience for a lot of us, because in many ways that we were offered to go on a grail quest of Robert Jordan's creation. He gave us this question, and he gave us this mystery, and he sort of built the world from it and around it, and let us sort of travel down like the quest and the questions through his characters. And there's no reason why he would have made the Legends of King Arthur so prominent in this book unless it was a very deliberate choice on his part.
Yeah, but was it just the names of particular characters, or are you seeing
the motif?
Just the motif. So the princess in the castle, Gawain, Galad, or Galahad, the queen, like Andor feels, I think, very, very Arthurian. They've also pointed Tom Merlin.
Yeah, and I think someone pointed out in the comments that pretty much every major character in this chapter from Andor is named after a character from an Arthurian character. It was a Gadfly fiction. Oh
yeah, and but then you have the nature of Taverin. This has been talked about a lot. This chapter, they say that Robert Jordan was deconstructing the tropes, deconstructing sort of the general story, and you can sort of look at it that way. I always see it as he was transforming it into his own story. He wanted to showcase his own capacity as an author, and saying everybody's going to know, or at least a lot of people are going to know about King Arthur. Excalibur, Calendor. They're going to know about Camelot, Camelin. They're going to know about maybe they'll know about Galahad and Gawain, and maybe they'll know about Morgase and whatnot. But I'm going to use all those characters, and I'm going to transform them into my story by dropping my guy, my Taverin, right into him, and he is going to stir that pot, and you're going to get to read about my story next.
So wait, who's Lancelot and who's Guinevere?
Guinevere. Elaine is in the Arthurian legends. I think she's related to Lancelot in some way. I don't know if she's.
Uh-oh.
Nope.
Oh no.
LPK, your
Lancelot.
internet's dying. We need to send you more
Ouch.
internet gas.
You need to get juice.
Okay. LPK, we kind of ran a little bit of this troubleshooting, but it does look like your bars are low. But if you want to turn off your video, that might
Yeah.
help. Yeah, see, your bars just went to almost full on that, but that's okay.
Somebody in my house is probably watching something on TV.
Oh, God.
Sabotage.
Better not be the show.
It's okay. They
All
probably
right.
just-
Honestly,
That's
LPK, thanks for that. That was a very high-minded discussion on the influence of the Arthurian legends on the Wheel of Time. That said, I don't think this is purely an Arthurian story. I mean, enough people draw parallels, at least in part, to Tolkien. People have obviously noted that Rand, Matt, and Perrin are kind of Norse figures of Tyr, Thor, and Odin, and there seems to be a whole lot of world mythology that gets kind of played in throughout the whole Wheel of Time, and he does that quite deliberately. But thanks for that awesome discussion on Arthur in general, and I think it does really come through in this chapter when all these characters get introduced. Steve, do you want to go second and just talk either about a favorite part of this chapter or something you didn't notice the first go around?
Galad. I just love that character. I love the way he shows up and how they're all like super
What?
scared of him. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's basically it. It's just I love. I mean, there's so much good stuff in this chapter, but if I would pick one thing, it's just the way that everybody reacts to Galad and the way he, like, kind of reacts to them. I just love the dynamic that he has with his siblings, basically.
Galad, of all people.
Oh yeah.
Really? He is
He's
my
the
guest
best.
here, Galad. I vouch for him. Or have you appointed yourself my nurse? Really? Okay.
Yeah, and he's like he's like looking at Gawain like, come on, help me out, and like, like, you know, it's just I love it. Like he must have immediately started running as soon as he got out of eyesight. Like,
Yeah.
the handsomest man that Rand had ever seen, almost too handsome for masculinity.
Yep, that means he's trans, right?
no.
He's just beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful Galad. You have to appreciate it.
To be quite honest, I always kind of lamented that Galad and Rand never met again.
Mm-hmm.
In the whole books, I was looking for, once you figure out obviously how the whole the relationships in the family tree is. Yeah, I kind of lamented that they never actually got together. So, or did they kind of? Did they?
I don't
like the tents at the Fields of Marilor was Galad in Perrin's council.
Yeah, but Rand and Galad don't seem to acknowledge each other there. To be fair, there are a lot of people and there's important conversations going on, so it's not like it's a good time to go like to catch up and go like, "Hey, bro."
Galad doesn't even really realize this until Gawain's dying, right? When because that's when Galad realizes that his other half brother is Rand, because Gawain's the one that reveals it to him. So Rand would have known, but didn't react to it because maybe it would have messed up his evening with Elaine if he did.
Yeah, but by the way, your half brother is my half brother.
But don't worry. I checked with a lot of nobles that this is totally above board. You don't have to get an abortion. Oh, did I just go there? I'm sorry, guys. So Steve likes Galad. LPK loves all the Arthurian stuff. Spaced Oyster, what's your favorite part of this chapter? Or if you want to do the other answer, something that maybe you didn't pick up on the first go around.
Well, because with this, when I was going over these again, I've been paying more attention to what the Aes Sedai are wearing when they're first introduced. I think my favorite moment in this part is Rand going into the throne room, and he's copying what everyone else is doing, or at least all the guys, and bowing. And Tal Anvar gives him a look, and he's like, what did I do wrong? No one told me what to do. And then everything is quiet except for Elida knitting. And Elida is wearing green, if you're curious.
Yes. Yes. She's not wearing combat fatigues all in red. Or like, what did Pips call her in season 1? Ilan Omar Sadai? That
Something.
was just with the red hijab. That was just costuming.
But
Costless.
but that bit there just really demonstrates the power of an Aes Sedai advisor. Like, this is this somber moment where everyone is giving their queen a moment of silent respect, and she's just sitting there knitting, and it's the only sound in the entire room. And it also just highlights how Aes Sedai sort of operate, or continues to operate, because the easy assumption to make about Elida is because she's knitting, she's not focusing on the conversation, but she's hearing every single word.
That's a good one. Kenny, how about you? Your favorite part of this chapter, or something you want to highlight?
I guess first off, we'll just say you get Elaine and her curses. She has
Fuck you! That was going to be mine. I had that saved up, but every damn time. Okay. Yes, you're right, though. Go ahead. I'll think of something else.
But yeah, just she has a Wagoneer's oath, I think, that kind of startles Rand when he hears it.
I know exactly where it is because I was gonna go there right after you said something different, but you didn't. Elaine growled an oath, and Rand's eyebrows shot up. He had heard that from one of the stablemen at the Queen's Blessing, and had been shocked then. The next moment, she was in cool self-possession once more.
Yeah, I love that Elaine's a potty mouth right from the start, because I remember reading, I think it was a comment or something, where someone was like, Elaine doesn't pick up cursing for a while. It's like, no, she was doing that right away.
I think Shad made that comment on his show review the other day. I was watching that, and I had to type something in the comment. Although Kenny was probably typing that comment like way earlier before me and just correcting him, being like, no, actually, if you go to the chapter she was introduced, she had a potty mouth then, and she had a potty mouth at the end of it. And this is one awesome character trait of hers that stays consistent throughout. So, all right. Thankfully, Kenny, I have a second one. I anticipated this, and it's honestly, it's the end of the chapter when Rand is getting escorted out, and it's the last little quip that that Elaine says to Rand, basically being like, if I had told Mother that I think you are handsome, she certainly would have had you locked in a cell. And then Elaine favored him with a dazzling smile. Fare you well, Rand al'Thor. And then he's just basically standing there open-mouthed. And then Gowan, who's still like a nice guy and doesn't turn into a jerk yet, is being like, dude, don't try bandy words with her. She'll win every time. I love this. I love it. This is why Elaine is kind of endearing to me, I think, from the start. And after such an introduction, she can do some of the dumbest stuff in the entire series, and she'll get a pass from me. So, yeah.
Do you think as she was leaving, she was saying to herself, "Why did I say that?"
Dude, you raise a very good point. But when you read through the actual dialogue here and just all of the lore dumping or the exposition that happens in the dialogue, it can feel a little bit wonky, but then you just have to remember of the Taviran effects going along. And it seems like every character in this chapter is saying things that maybe they don't mean to say, or saying it in a way that they don't mean to say. And here I'm talking about like the Elida foretelling, where she's told to basically speak as true as she can and speak it plainly. And it just so happens that the most important stuff that she says is spoken plainly, but so low that only Rand really hears what's being said. Coincidence? No, Taviranhood. It's great.
No. That's not that's where I get annoyed. That's not Taviran. What? She chooses to do that because she doesn't want them to hear what she's saying. She doesn't want the queen to hear that part.
Yeah,
What?
she thinks they're gonna lock him in a cell anyway. So then she's gonna figure out what's at the heart of that. I'm assuming she thinks they're gonna like almost execute him or something. If she says that out loud, I don't know why she was afraid to say that necessarily, but I think she didn't want anyone to hear that, and she wanted to get to the bottom of that herself because she was shocked that Morghese let him go.
Yeah, because she even says like she almost like mocks him because he can't say it's a lie that she said it loudly, basically.
So this is the relevance. I said, "This I foretell," Elida replied, "but swear under the light that I could say no clearer. From this day and our marches towards pain and division, the shadow is yet to darken to its blackest, and I cannot see if the light will come after. Where the world has wept one tear, it will weep thousands. This I foretell." A pall of silence clung to the room, broken only by Morghese expelling her breath as if it was her last. Elida continued to stare into Rand's eyes. She spoke again, barely moving her lips, so softly he could barely hear, less than an arm's length away. "This too I foretell, pain and division come to the whole world, and this man stands at the heart of it. I obey the queen," she whispered, "and speak it clearly." Now, I always interpreted like the Aes Sedai kind of go into a trance state or foretelling and aren't really fully aware of what happens when
Not
they're making the
Elida.
foretelling. Not
That's
Elida?
only some of them because later on she foretells about the tower, and she doesn't. It almost seems like she can kind of control like when she
Yeah.
foretells like a little bit.
But the open question: why does she lower her speech here? Is it because
don't know,
she
but
is doing her own plans, or is
if
she
you go
caught
to
up
the
in
next
Tyrion
page, though,
swirl?
If you go to the next page, you can see like she flashed a hard smile at Rand, a smile that barely bent her lips, mocking his inability to say that she was not telling the truth. Because
Yeah. And they give a chance for him to learn more when he's in prison. So she wants to learn something from him without Morghese knowing
because he
that
says
last
right before
line.
that, like, unless
So
you have something more
so
to say about him.
if she said the whole line in the full court, the queen might have executed Rand. So that's why she kind of kept quiet about it, and then she tries to steer her plan towards keeping him imprisoned.
Or she wanted to ensure that Elida and Elida alone was the only one who would get a chance to interrogate Rand. Whereas if Rand was imprisoned because of the last little bit that she said louder, then Morghese would want to make sure that she has someone listening in on all the interrogations. Because being told that the world stands at the precipice of change and this man's at the heart of it, that would definitely get her interested in learning all she can about Rand al'Thor.
But at the end of the day, no matter how we interpret this, it all works out for Rand, and that's got to be Tavir and Hood. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, if do we have any more things to bring up? Because I got ones.
Absolutely. I said kind of at the start of this chapter, this is one of the longest ones. So if we want to run the gamut as well, and if we want to go descending order as how we're organized here, Spaced, if you want to say again, and then we can maybe circle back to LPK and see if Kenny wants to steal another one of my my favorite parts, and then Steve maybe will get the last word on this one.
Well, I was just going to bring up that it's connected to all this Taviranness and talking with Elida, however you pronounce that. Rand, when Elida starts to interrogate him, that's when Rand decides, I'm tired of telling the truth. It's time to start lying again. And so he tells her that he's staying at an inn on the other side of town and that he's only been there for a few days.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And that basically buys him and Moraine and everyone else enough time to go into the ways before Elida tracks them down.
Yeah. And it was precisely him telling the absurd truth up until then that got him out of there. Because had he been caught in a single lie before that, yeah, he's definitely ending up in jail. But he's from the Two Rivers. He's a shepherd. He has a heron-marked sword, and it's from his dad. All true and too absurd to be a lie. So, anyway, LPK, how about you, sir? Is the internet's back with you?
You tell me. I mean, I can hear myself just fine. Do I sound like a robot?
No, you sound great. If you want to go back on video, you can definitely try that because it looks like you got full bars. But do you have a second insight that you want to add for this chapter?
let's see how my bars go. My one thing I would like to, if you don't mind scrolling to the last page of the chapter, the second to last words Gowan ever says to Rand.
About him being
And this is
Rapashufa, or which words?
where we got.
Highlight.
And
Yeah, wrap a shufa around your head.
no, go back. Go one more page toward the.
Yeah, that's
no. 5. It's the paragraph that says I wish we could have come to know one another, Randall Thor. Fare you well.
It's the last little thing, the one you were highlighting before.
Oh,
Here we go. Yeah, it is not the second. It is literally the last thing that Gowan says to him.
second to last.
So what else does he say?
They meet again, and Dumai's Wells in the aftermath. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant second to last in this.
In
chapter.
the whole books.
Okay, in the whole books. Now I hear
And this
you.
is the transformative nature of Taverin. Gowan goes from this to, before this is settled, Randall Thor, I'll see you dead. Or in so many words, perhaps not quite exactly those. But he goes from, like, if only we could be friends, to I wish you were just dead.
On the words of a peddler.
Yes.
I heard it from a peddler that you killed my mom. You have to die. Dude, like, your sister doesn't. I don't care what my sister thinks for the first time. I heard from this peddler. Egwene will vouch. Egwene wasn't 100% sure. She wanted more time to work this out. Egwene was in the room when he found out about Morgaine. Sorry. Sorry, Steve. You're going to get defensive about Egwene if I start blaming her for all
I'll
of
get
this.
defensive about a Gateway too. I don't think he's that unreasonable.
Oh,
you got
God.
this madman shows up, and then your mom is dead, and it's like, oh well, yeah, his ex-girlfriend says he didn't do it, but
Plus, he's after your sister. He's going for your sister.
yeah, he's
That's
trying,
good.
Yeah.
That's no good.
Oh,
he's
God, it makes
reasonable.
perfect sense.
It's true,
Gowan is
Steve.
the most reasonable character in the series. I think you guys have convinced me. Okay, Kenny, how about you? Is there another part of this incredibly long chapter that you want to highlight or steal from me?
The them constantly thinking Rand is an Aiel, despite him having a sword on his hip, reinforces later where when Elaine finally meets Avienda and them on the river down to Tyr, Elaine thinks she knows about the Aiel, but she learns that she doesn't really know all that much about the Aiel. So that just kind of reinforces that, like Gawain and everybody think he's an Aiel, but an Aiel would never wear a sword. So they should clue them in immediately. Or he's not actually, he wasn't raised as an Aielman at the very least. Because they're all thinking he should say he should be out.
Was that
Go
one
ahead.
of the customs that that Elaine got correct on the first
That
time?
I do not remember.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna have to read that carefully because you're right. Elaine has misconceptions about the Aiel. A lot of people have misconceptions about him, but they should pretty much know that they won't touch a sword. Although I'm struggling to think if that actually got mentioned early on. God, it might be the stupid show that's polluting my mind here, because I know Show Tom tells Show Matt when they see Show Gall in the show cage that the Aiel would never touch a sword. I'm pretty sure it comes up there. But Steve, how about you, sir? Giving you the last word on this epically long chapter where we've met for the first time Elaine, Gowan, Galad, Talonvor, Morgase, Gareth Bryn, Elida. A lot of important characters, all for later books, but don't really bear on the on this book afterwards.
Yeah, I would say that Elida notices he has a heron mark sword, and the interesting thing is, a few chapters ago, the toughs at the inn were basically saying to Rand, like, who'd you steal that from? But now Gareth Bryn says, no, it's his sword. So already Rand is starting to get kind of that it looks like it belongs on him, basically. Which
Yeah.
that also, it's like everything to do with them finding out that he has that sword is like pretty. It's a funny scene. They all kind of like instantly go into a panic and are ready to die, basically.
Gareth Bryn moves in between Queen Morghese and Rand. Gowan moves between Elaine and Rand, and every single guard in the room, like leather is creaking and like swords are getting loosened. But it's just like, what a good kind of non-verbal way to boost up the Heron Mark sword. Like you can hear till the cows come home that Lan says it's the mark of a blade master. But you put an entire room on edge when it's revealed that you're carrying one of these things, and everyone all of a sudden thinks you might have abilities or might be better at using that than you think. So yeah, it's a great little addition. I agree.
And then I guess it also highlights how unfamiliar people are with Aiel at this point, because the fact that he has a sword on and looks like an Aiel man should just be like red flags galore, because an Aiel would never use a sword, but no one's familiar enough with them
We
to know
just talked
that.
about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a couple of final thoughts on this. I really like the whole Elaine healing Rand, like with her bandages and her poultices, and like she likes to work on birds with broken wings and stray cats and whatnot, and that whole scene in the garden. I just love it. Everybody should go read it again. Who's watching the stream? It's just great. But an interesting thing that just sprang to my mind, and maybe we end on this, but Gowan says, wrap a shufa around your head, Rand al'Thor, and you look like an Aielman. Doesn't he have a shufa around his head, or at least a silk scarf bandage that Elaine gave him? So maybe that's what was doing. I don't know. Would have been fun to see, but no, we got Tarvalon instead. And
Yep.
I have one more, Dane, that I've been trying to find it that I was amused by. So this is Elaine after they're talking about Galad after he leaves and how Elaine hates Galad. And
yes.
But she says for Gowan, she says, "You say I'm fond of giving orders. Well, I command you to let nothing happen to you. I command you to be my first prince of the sword when I take the throne. The lights in that day is far off, and to lead the armies of Andor with the sort of honor Galad cannot dream of." Gowan definitely fails on that pretty badly.
And then,
Does not.
Do you think he remembered that when he took like the rings and like 3 at once? I'm going to be the best like Shan assassin ever.
I don't think
blame
Gawain was
Sanderson.
thinking about a lot of things at that time.
Well, by that time he was I think he'd already absolved himself of becoming Prince of the Sword for Andor, because Elaine had already said, go be Gawain's warder. But yeah, he definitely doesn't follow that order at all. So good job, Gowan.
Yeah. Well, and then one small thing about Elaine with the healing stuff is that, unless I'm misremembering, I don't think she ever shows an interest in healing ever again. No.
A bird. There's a bird in Saladar.
Yeah, but it's not like it's
not her talent. She finds out her talents in other things. Like,
but it's not like it's a problem.
She's immortal and making ter'angreal.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not like it's a problem that she doesn't have an interest in healing after that point. It's just that it's more like a hobby she picked up because she's a bored princess.
Yeah.
Well, it's better she's doing this than making toilet wine like she does in the show, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Kenny, we're going to go to chapter 41, and I ripped on you a little bit earlier by giving you like the first go at the stepchild chapter, but I'm going to give you first go then for old friends and new threats. This is Rand making it from the palace, going into a dead run, and a lot of stuff happens in here. First and foremost, a bunch of dastardly white cloaks show up at the inn, and Basil Gill grows a set. Then it turns out that there's a nice highborn lady at the kitchens, and Basil Gill gets all concerned. Oh shit, if you handsome Aielman looking bastard brought the daughter heir down here, we're all going to get killed. But no, it turns out it's Moraine, and the party arrives. Everybody gets to have a fun reunification, but the chapter ends on a harrowing note where they all kind of go upstairs to see Matt, and we get the shock essentially of, well, it all comes to a head. Matt's got the Shadow Logoth dagger. He's been completely corrupted, and there's a very, very cool scene. Lan being a boss, stopping Matt's wrist. He's curled up like a ball, but wants to slash with one thing. And Moraine pulls out the Angreal at the end of the chapter to try and do her healing work. So, Kenny, favorite part and insight that you didn't pick up on the first go around, whatever you want to talk about, first opening lines are to you on this chapter.
My favorite part is what you just mentioned kind of last, and that is the true Lan teleporting scene where he teleports to where Matt is and grabs the dagger. And then also Moraine's reaction to it, where she doesn't even flinch when Matt is about to stab her with it, because she knows Lan's got it. And then like Matt just straining as hard as he can, and Lan's just sitting there, just holding it, like completely unperturbed. It's just awesome.
Let me bring that up and let's read through that. So, boom, boom, boom. Where is it? Okay.
That's before this.
Oh. So they have a conversation.
Yeah, and then the Moraine walks in, and she hisses at them, "Get back!" So let's see. All of you stay away from him and be quiet. Yeah. So
okay. So we are all safe. Get away from him.
And then the next page. And then 1 minute, Lan was in the doorway. The next, he was at the bedside, as if he had not bothered with the intervening space. So his hand caught Matt's wrist, stopping the slash as if it had struck stone.
Yep.
Matt's still in a tight ball. Only the hand with the dagger tried to move, straining against the warder's implacable grip. Matt's eyes never left Moraine, and they burned with hate. Very, very well written, but I think sadly we have proved that canonically, according to the books, Lan can teleport. So maybe we just didn't know the books as much as we thought we did when we took them to task for that egregious editing faux pas in episode 7. LPK, sir. LPK. You want to go second, or do you want to give that to Steve? I don't think Steve's got to go first yet, has he?
Steve, all the way. Let him go.
Right.
Let him run. Give him the ball.
If you go back one page, actually, I think you're already at my part. Yeah, where Matt is talking to Nynaeve here, it's just he's real scared. Like, I just love how scary he is. Like how cruel he's become, basically. And he's
very insightful.
And he hits Nynaeve right where it hurts. Like he digs in like deep, and then he hits Egwene too. Like. Yeah, it's just it's a very disturbing part of the book.
Yeah,
and Perrin as well. Yeah, he gets them all.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that the show? Oh, okay. I'm not even going to talk about that. We know the show hates Matt, but maybe all they read about him is this paragraph here, and they just said, "Oh, that's his character." Fuck that show. Okay, LPK. Do you want to go now?
I was just very frightened by just how tremendously evil of Shadar Logoth becomes. And I think, did Pip say he was going to do some cosmology stream about the Wheel of Time, sort of like the ins and outs of sort of the theological framework of this world?
Maybe, or he wanted Steve to do that for us.
Steve, like, if somebody who has a sharp mind for like this sort of thing, it's just always been fascinating that the evil of man can like rival the evil of the Dark One, it completely. And I was just very curious, like, is there like a parallel where like the benevolence of man can sort of shine as brightly as the light of the Creator? Because like this Shadow Logoth, that's all from the human perspective, right? It comes from man. It doesn't come from the Dark One, and it like stands. And it's just interesting.
Well, so I I always had a separate kind of headcanon for this, if you want to indulge me on
Yes,
the evil of
please.
Shadow Logoth. Um, I always kind of thought that Mordeth and the character that is Mordeth, or the essence that is Mordeth, if I was finishing off the series, I would have been an immortal feature of it. So I don't like how Fane, Smith, Mordeth, or whatever was treated at the very end, where apparently Matt had been vaccinated from a stab wound to the back, or whatever it is, and that's how he survived it. I would have liked it better that Mordeth doesn't need an origin story because he's always been kind of a part of the world. There's always been that feature element of man. And what I liked about its place in the story was precisely that it was a different kind of evil. That there is, a very Zoroastrian good and evil, like a dark one creator, but what can be just as pernicious is something that manifests from the methods and the attitudes you use to fight that evil. And the White Cloaks are the representation of this in the early chapters. You get introduced to the White Cloaks first, and then like 2 chapters later, after you've met the piece of shit that is Dane Bornhold, you meet essentially a story that got destroyed by the same type of overzealousness and suspicion and desire to confront evil with evil. And the message there is quite obvious, is basically ends don't justify the means. If you're going to be good, you can't use the same methods as those who are evil, because that's also just as important.
Excellent. I love that. Thank you.
I have been drinking.
No, it makes sense.
So I would have liked it that this was obviously a feature of the world, and therefore it didn't need to explain where it came from. It was kind of always there in the cycles of the Wheel of Time. And my second favorite headcanon theory was that Mordeth was a golem that basically mutated. But I think that one was shut down. So who knows? Spaced Oyster, sir.
All right. Well,
do you want to take us home?
It might shock you, but I think I really like the part with the White Cloaks.
Yes, but because of the White Cloaks, or because Basil Gill grew a set?
Both. Well, that, and it's also something I didn't notice on my first read through. I think it's like a little bit of another sort of misdirection on Robert Jordan's part, because the White Cloaks come into the inn and they say, we're looking for a fugitive a man from the Two Rivers. And since we're in Rand's point of view, we, along with Basil Gill and Rand, all assume, oh shit, they're looking for us for some odd reason. But a later realization is like, no, Perrin just escaped from the White Cloaks. They're looking for Perrin.
And if you want to know where George R. R. Martin got his idea for the Inn at the Crossroads scene, where everybody pulls out their swords and arrests Tyrion Lannister, it was right here. Because Basil Gill, we're good Queen's man, he goads the White Cloak into saying some slanderous, sneering thing bad about Morghese, and then all of a sudden everybody in the whole inn stands up. Langwyn unsheathes the sword, and the White Cloaks are basically stared down by the whole common room. It's a great scene. Mm-hmm. But yes, you're 100% right. White Cloaks are looking for Perrin, and obviously Rand interprets it as being like, uh-oh, why are they looking for me? Because the show's all about him, huh?
Yeah.
All right. I think let's highlight the chat again. Let's see who's still here. We've got somehow 11 people still watching. Lady Balefire has been here the whole time, talking. She's diving really into the Lord of the Rings and that mythology. Shelob's evil might be different from other kinds of evil. Gadfly is daring to disagree with me on this. Okay, Gadfly. Well, if it is in the nature of humanity, have the capacity for pure evil just as pure good, what is the representation of pure good in the series outside of the creator? Is it Gawain?
It's clearly Oliver.
I was going to say Oliver.
Oh, that could be a good one.
Right on.
All right. I'm going to have to concede that point. because it's getting late. So I will say you guys are right. My whole theory is completely wrong. It is Oliver. Oliver wins. Let's see who else we got still in the chat. John Thomas, sir. Haven't reread the last book since it came out. That's the odd thing about it. I think those final books aren't the most rereadable. Certain parts of them are, but every once in a while I get to an Andrel chapter and I just end up putting the book down for a year.
You just got to embrace Androl inside you,
Mhm.
the man who can do it all.
Yeah, there's an
maybe I
Andrel
just
in all.
maybe I just need to buy a copy of Portal on Steam and really play that for like for a month, and then I'll know. Oh, this is why it was written this way. It was so cool. Portal, what a great video game.
Mhm.
And I think one thing that I can highlight, if I haven't had a chance yet to speak about this final chapter, although I agreed, like you guys highlighted some of my favorite parts too, Aes Sedai and cats. That there are a lot of like it starts with Rand coming back, and it turns out there was a scrap about cats. Someone was trying to steal the cats at the end. There's a great cat. There's a calico cat, tomcat, all cats all around. And then when Moraine shows up, you get the cats again, and that the cats actually prefer to get scratched by her. So that affinity between Aes Sedai and cats ends up being a bigger deal, or it's just one of those subtle details that kind of rings through. And then the men, and especially the Ashamen and the dogs, well done books. It's the little things that kind of keep you coming back and enjoying it. So
Did you notice what Basil Gill was doing whenever Rand got back to the inn?
Oh, he was playing
stones, playing
Not
Go.
just playing stones, losing at stones, because he always loses at stones.
Oh,
Is that true?
Is it because he almost always loses, or is it because? Well, he was playing against Loyal too, and Loyal always wins at stones, almost.
I don't think we ever get to see Loyal and Tom play. I don't think.
Do Tom and Basil Gill then play in The Dragon Reborn when they stay there again?
Right, and he has the same reaction where he's just like trying to find a way out of the game before he can concede loss, which is what he's doing. Loyal's like, oh, we're going to have to concede this game. It's like we can play another one later. Don't worry about it.
I missed that. God, if that's honestly what if he was losing at stones and then said, "Oh, we got to do a different game," and then Loyal's like, "No, don't worry about it. It's your turn," and he goes and grabs a book. Okay, that's a subtle thing. I missed that in the first go around, but that's actually great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Basil Gill losing at stones could be one of those little things, like Bail Domon's aged grandmother.
I don't really remember Basil Gill playing stones much beyond the third book because
It was just with Tom, I think.
Yeah,
but it just seems like I think they're played a couple times. I think maybe when Matt first leaves and when he comes back, they're still playing.
Does he play the Queen when they're in Amador as prisoner?
I don't.
I know.
That was Pedron.
No.
I know that, but I'm just wondering if she even like that would be a fun throwaway line. Like Morghese look forward to her games against Pedro Nile because beating Basil Gill is too fucking easy.
I don't think so. That would be great.
That would have been good if that. When we get to our Bookcloaks stream of book 6, we'll keep an eye out for that. But I don't think that's in there. Maybe just on our headcanon. But hey, everybody in the chat who joined us out, I hope you enjoyed an evening of us talking about something good instead of occasionally once in a while talking about something bad. I think these were 6 extraordinary chapters. We're getting into the home stretch here on the Eye of the World in 2 weeks. Maybe I do have to let you guys know. I do have some travel coming up for work, so I might not be around. And with other scheduling issues that we have, we kind of have to go on this 2-week schedule because of week on, week off among some of the others. So if that's the case, maybe it's a full month before we get to the next book club stream, but I'm going to try and make it 2 weeks from now where we're going to be covering, I think, the next 5 chapters. We're going to get all the way to Faldara. I'll have to reach out to another contestant winner on the Discord. I think Ricasso is his name, but we'll bring him on. But I want to thank again, finally, Space Oyster LPK. Thanks for coming on and joining the panel and diving into each of these chapters, kind of chapter by chapter and providing us with either favorite parts or little insights. It was a fun discussion. I enjoyed it a lot. But any final words, Spaced Oyster?
No, I can't really think of anything else to add. Walk always in the light.
Excellent. Steve, final words?
No, yeah, it's the same. It's good
LPK,
talk.
sir.
Good talk.
Everybody have sweet dreams. Thank you for having me on.
And Kenny, last word. Obviously, you, man.
That's been great. Hope y'all guys have a great night.
All right. Take care, everybody.